it's interesting how you hear the discussion. This is a little bit of a, maybe a sidebar, but about the taxpayers. The taxpayers want this, that, and the other. The taxpayers aren't the only Americans. We're citizens of this nation. The taxpayer is part of that citizenry, but to have the frame of the taxpayers is framing it in a way that we therefore own the government and can tell them what to do, as opposed to the citizens, the broader community of all ages and all generations. And that's the kind of thinking that Maggie stimulated in the whole work in critical gerontology, but it's quite a blossoming area in gerontology and in the social sciences, and there's a lot of work to be done. Much of it is now being done in terms of globalization and the perils and negatives of that, the failure to reach the democratic dream, instead the vastly growing inequality that is occurring.
No, I wanted to maybe Brooke.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I mean, I hear the stories about the Media Watch group, and I think about how important that would be now, because I think especially with the consolidation of media, we see ageism and this idea of intergenerational warfare springing up again, and these ideologies are constantly brought into our policy debates. So, you know, taking that frame and looking at it critically and seeing how it's motivating a lot of policy debates is important, because it's not enough just to say, well, the public supports Social Security, because that's not what's necessarily driving the decisions that are being made when the policies are being proposed. So I think there's absolutely an incredible role for critical gerontology in the policy debates currently.
Part of the challenge is how you communicate that so that you're not just talking to yourself. I think that's so I'm thinking about when Carroll mentioned the Maddox, the Gerontological Society, sort of the confrontation between Maggie Kuhn and George Maddox. It was all thrown together at the last minute, and they had to move it to a big room, and it attracted a lot of attention. But several of us put together this little yellow brochure that had this picture of a water tank on the front with an old woman in the middle about to drown, and the sharks circling around her, with the federal government pouring money in to feed the sharks, and that was the Gerontological Society. That was not a good way to communicate, to get people to appreciate your point of view. So, you know, so I think there are subtleties that are important and ways to connect these issues, doing the radical analysis, but then finding ways to connect to what people believe and can hear. I'm thinking about Maggie Kuhn made great use out of the Johnny Carson and Blabby thing. She was on Johnny Carson repeatedly until we came back from China. And she went on. She called me before going on Johnny Carson and said, "Should I wear my Mao jacket?" I said, well, it might be the last time. And she did. And it was the last time. Because it was like she was still within the bounds that Johnny Carson could work with her. But when she made a much more political statement, it was past the bounds, and she lost that platform. She knew what she was doing, but I think it's that issue of how to not only do the analysis, but find ways to connect to people so that you're not just leading yourself. There are actually people coming along with us.
Good point. And the other thing, just saying in terms of even the rolling out of some of these changes, and I've got a handout here in good Maggie fashion, about current issues and block granting Medicaid. But the way this stuff about Medicare is rolled out is not going to affect certain people over a certain age. And what Bush tried to do with Social Security was separate out. You don't have to worry about it. You have a certain age, and assuming that would cut that issue off. So there are constant attempts to divide along the age line that we have to be really vigilant against.
Yes.
Will this video, will there be a way we can buy a copy of this? I'm sorry, I'm Bill Flynn from the Great Panthers of Rhode Island.
Actually, it'll be posted on the Great Panthers YouTube channel.
Yeah, we're trying to rebuild our group. People still remember when Maggie was invited to. I don't remember. Was involved, but anyways, she arrived for a conference, something to speak, and the guy who was our lead organizer, calling it Henry Shelton, had organized. His sons had organized the news carriers to get a better deal from the Providence Journal, which they had to pay for the bags that they carried the papers in. They had to, when they had to pay for all this stuff. They ended up making about $1 an hour, I think, in delivering the papers. And Maggie heard about this, and she said, "Oh, well, they were going to do a protest with the, at the newspaper." And so Maggie said, "I want to be part of that," and really kind of marched down into this imposing building with security guards and everything, and she said, something to the effect of, "You're a news organization and you don't know who I am? You're not." I mean, what she was trying to do, I mean, obviously, the only newspaper in the state was not going to cover an action against themselves but she was hoping to add her name to get the attention to it. And to some degree, I believe that it did. But we're trying to regenerate the Gray Panthers in Rhode Island, which has been there a long time, but really became not intergenerational. I think that's a potent idea, and I think this is the time for that. But I wish I could have all of our members here in this room for this discussion, because I think the whole spirit of this. We do have a copy of Maggie Growls, and to the highest bidder, I will no. But anyways, okay, so it'll be available on the website.
Yeah, and we'll link it to the Facebook page and the
you guys should sell it. I mean, can't you sell? I mean, for some.
This is still a capitalist society.
Yeah.
It is, and I hate operating within it.
We haven't paid our dues for years, but I mean, I just want to say this has been remarkable. This has been a wonderful workshop.
We're not finished yet.
Questions?
Yeah, I have a memory and also a question that I was an undergraduate student. I had just worked in a nursing home and witnessed all sorts of abuse in the nursing home and was trying to make sense of it, and ended up in a 3-day retreat on aging that Maggie Kuhn had led. And I have to say there were 19 more interesting people in that meeting than I was at that stage in my life, and yet I was really the beneficiary of Maggie looking at me and just being completely focused and so fascinated with what I had to say. That fascination.
Did you have a mustache at the time?
But I would say that her infusion of excitement and passion and social justice helped to fuel me through a master's program in gerontology and a doctorate with a focus in gerontology, and I can really do that touchstone of social justice back to those very, very formative couple of days. And I guess my question in terms of what do we do as a movement of very talented, smart, excited, committed people who don't have that charismatic leader of a Maggie Kuhn, of a Claude Pepper, that we really don't have that lightning rod touchstone that can pull all those voices together. So I come to ASA year after year, and there are all these wonderful things going on. And we do talk about issues of social justice, but we really lack the leadership to move us forward as a group. So I don't know that there's a good answer to that, but I'd be certainly interested in your opinions.
First of all, you didn't introduce, and we should have asked everyone to do that.
Oh, I'm Jenny Campbell. I'm at Bryn Mawr College, graduate school social worker.
So do you want to?
I don't have any. I mean.